Hello and welcome back to Fuse Coding with me. I'm edA-qa mort-ora-y. If you don't know me, I'm one of the lead programmers for the layout and animation parts of Fuse, which is a cross-platform, or rather Android and iOS tool for developing apps rather quickly, and it helps with working together with designers and graphics and UX and everything very nicely. And today we're going to demonstrate a bit of that as I attempt to convert one of the designs I found on Dribbble into a Fuse app, or a little Fuse prototype at least. We won't do the full app. And it's from a guy called Johnny Vino. Hello, Leo Nixon. I'm doing fine. Hope you're doing as well. So today we're going to be working on this little app here. This is a little mock-up that done by this guy on Dribbble, Johnny Vino. I looked at a lot of his stuff. He has a lot of great stuff, so I think we're going to be seeing him a lot in this show, a lot of his designs. And today we're going to take this. This one doesn't have animation, but I thought it's something I could probably do within the time frame we have. And we're going to see how long this takes us or what we can do. It has a little bit of visualization. That's nice. It's not all here. We'll fill in the blanks as we go along. A lot of the stuff has lots of animation. We can fill it in, and we'll see what we do with this. As usual, if you have questions, please let me know. And otherwise, we'll start it. I had already started working on the app. I didn't quite finish setting it up. So I have basically just the basic setup, and I saved this as the wrong file. So I'm going to save that again. Save as mainview.ux. It's going to be a UX file. And we're just going to throw an image in here first of all, just so we have something to show. Assets slash, and I don't know what asset. I have a header PNG. No, it's going to work. And I have main state. Main state I'm going to have to open up again. I'm just going to delete that file. And we're going to have to put the class in here. Export default class. Main state. This is setting up the model. It's one of the new features. It's the JavaScript model for maintaining the state in the app. And it does a state management. It makes it a lot simpler than working with the old observable system. And we'll use it to track the data, because I don't want to just do a pure visual mock-up. I'd like to actually show how to connect this data back and forth at least a little bit, because that's part of that's an interesting thing all the time. Okay, so I saved all these files, so we should be able to rebuild this now, and hopefully I didn't make any mistakes. And what do I have here? Unexpected token somewhere here. Oh, that's a bit weird. Got an unexpected token very early in the show. Why do I have two files? And I just figure out what happened here. Something went wrong with my files. I'm just going to jump down to the command line to see how to fix this thing. And I'm sure you can't really see this here. The font's so small. And I think this was Sublime doing something funny here. I made a mistake and now I can't fix it easily enough. So, cat main state. This is weird. So Sublime did something weird here. It copied the file to the wrong place, and I don't know where my JS file went to. So this is the main JS file, and I really don't know what is it doing. I don't know why it created it there. It's the weirdest thing. I'm just going to create a new file then. Get rid of this, and in this main state I'll fix the file. Really don't know what happened there. Let's see. Okay, it looks a little better. So I was just creating the JavaScript file. We just got to set this up. I'm trying to work from scratch in these shows so we have a complete recollection. I had the main state, just a tiny little thing here. That's all I had. And of course, this version didn't have my image in it, so image file equals assets. This is just a header image. We use it as a placeholder. One of the things when translating designs. And you can't really see it. You probably can't see this sort of thing, because what I did is I took the image and I just converted it to white, which makes it most useful for the for Fuse because you can put masking colors on it, tinting then. So we're just going to put 888, and then we have the tinting color. And this is just going to serve as the top of the image. We have the image here. I'm just going to view the image. And this will serve as this little bit up here. We can only, when doing graphics live like this, I can't obviously quickly find these graphics, so we're going to make do with whatever I have. But obviously you'd want it through and customize that background graphic. We can definitely put the gradient in. This is using the new OS or iPhone 10 layout at the top. You notice there. I think this is actually a bit too small, but okay, let's try and create the first page first. So this one has 2 pages. So we're going to set this up right away. We're going to set this up right away with a navigator. And we'll create the list of pages here, and we'll take it from the model, and we'll have to go create that. And the first page doesn't have anything on it. Neither does the other page. So we're gonna, the first page is the image is on the one specific page. So page UX class equals, and we'll just call this page overview. Save this then, page overview, and we'll put that image on there. Page overview, it has an image. And to the main view, we will have a page overview. And this will be called, I guess we'll just call this page overview as well. That'll be the template name, the same as this. And in the state file, we're going to have to create a class called page overview. Hello Alice, welcome to the show. And we're going to set up the pages here. The subpage equals new page overview. We'll connect the state later as we need to. I just want to get the basics set up first. So we have the overview. It maps to the main pages. Maybe I should just call it pages. We're already in the main state. Then page overview, and it's in a navigator. And if all this didn't work out, it looks exactly the same, so you can't really tell that I did anything. But you're just going to trust me on that until we get to the rest of the navigation. Let's see where we go. We want to at least do this first layout here. Well, this frame is split. Doing this type of splitting is a little bit weird. You have to have the image. This has to go a little bit further down. So this is more of a background split with a top. So the background we just leave as is. But let's try to get that split they have there. So I'm trying to think of how to actually do this split. We could actually just have not a split. This is possible. Let's just fill this with the linear gradient. Start point equals 0, 0, and end point equals 0, 1, which means it goes down. And this may not be a wise idea. I'm trying to think if this is a good idea. Because you can't really say where in the page the gradient ends. If it needs to be behind some fixed element here, all right, let's do it slightly differently. Let's pack this on the top. Let's put a panel at the top that has this gradient with the images in it. It has the images on it as well, and it's filled with the linear gradient. And the gradient stop color equals. Now I don't have a color sampling tool, otherwise I would quickly be able to pull that out. So I'm just going to quickly guess this is something like a cyan color. Offset equals 0. And the end side is also still a cyan, or not a, yeah, a cyan color, but a darker. So let's just go for 888 and offset equals 1. I think it's simpler. You can import the gradients obviously from your design tool and see where you want the ends to go. This is very quick. Actually, the whole graphic back there would most likely be just imported, but or just the graphic and then that's in the background. And we're just going to give this a height. I'm not sure what height this is. This will be based on the graphic, and it's already device independent units, so we can simply say height equals 200, and let's see what that looks like then when we save it over here. Okay, and it obviously has to be aligned to the top. And his colors are a lot more blue. I should recognize that. This is way more blue. So let's just make them a bit more blue first, and CF and 9A. I got more purpley here, but that's okay. I say a color sampling tool will be really helpful. We'll just leave it. This is supposed to be even more saturated. Even more saturated than that. At least the bottom shade. The bottom got way too gray. There you go. Should be darker though. Alright. I don't think this is going to make a big difference here. But now we want this image. The image should be in the middle a bit, so the image shouldn't be so wide. And that's a mistake, which is the image I got. Obviously, you'd want to choose an image that isn't so wide. And we're just going to make the image width no more than 50%, say 50%. And this is going to work in portrait mode, but it's probably going to fall apart on us in landscape mode. So you should actually probably just choose a picture which has the ratio you want, because changing it this way makes it a little less adaptive. Well, we can say 50%, and that'll force it into whatever view we have. And we're going to make this one nice and white now, and align it to the top. Okay. Alright, great. We're going to take a little suggestion here. That looks much nicer. Good. That's what I wanted, more saturation. And you see the problem, I compress this image a lot, and so the edges look really weird. And it's actually white is too bright here. And we can simply modify that by making it translucent, and that lets the background color shine through. It's not perfect, but I just want something up there for now. And then we're going to put the tool thing on top. And again, if I had the exact graphic, I'd just throw it up there. So now we're going to create this little bar at the bottom here where we throw in this data. And I'll create the outline first. And I see our background color, his background on this page is actually more of a gray. So this panel color should actually be a bit more of a gray. Looks like a fairly light color gray. Or even more light colored. So it's great if you have a graphic designer sitting beside you. They can just look at the screen and tell you the code. As a programmer, I can tell you, how to code the layout, but I can't tell you what color it is, so it would take me a while. And it's still quite bright. And I just wanted to have that there so we can have another panel on the page, and it has a margin of, it looks like its margin is around 10 for the left, and the top margin, we're going to say 200 for the bottom. It's most of that, so about 150, and then 10, and probably 10. And these will be the days at the bottom. And this doesn't have a color, but it has a background. And because it has rounded corners, we're going to have to stick the background in very low rounding. And this is part that's actually white. Layer equals background. And this also has a padding on it. Looks like a padding of 10. Okay, and you notice right now it's behind here. So it's not in front, it's behind. And that's because we put it behind in the file. Now, you can actually put this on top, so you could reverse the order of this panel and this panel, but sometimes just for layout reasons, you don't want to do that. Like, this is logically the header, and if you're coming back to this file, you'd like the code to be that way. So you can change the offset of it, Z offset, and stick it 1 instead, and that changes the order. We have this issue with the preview sometimes not recognizing that until you resize it, so... And it looks like something like 150 is actually wrong, the header. It's a lot further up than I thought. Okay. And so that puts it higher up. And our color contrast isn't quite there, but it's also very subtle here. I can't quite see the subtlety difference there. The blue and gray. So that's okay, though we see it. And I'll make it slightly less subtle then. Instead of EE, I'll make it E8, 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 and then we'll be fine. It should be slightly darker. That gives it just enough to see the border more. So now we have the basic page set up. And we have, what's interesting here is we have sliders here. Now there are many ways we can do this. When you have 3 things and you have to click on them, you could actually make these as pages, in a page control. It depends what you want the animation down here. What I assume is that these are independent pages, because if you look at days, you have Friday, Thursday, Tuesday. When I go to weeks, I can't possibly reuse the text, and most of this is probably changed, so I don't know if that slides away or everything changes. So I'm going to suggest we use a page control here. And the page control then lets us show multiple things, and we don't actually have to use dynamic pages here. You can use a page control anytime you want to have a couple things that are on the page and they swipe back and want to swipe back and forth, or multiple items. And we'll stick 3 pages in here quickly. Page 1 title is days. And I won't put anything on that yet. Title equals weeks. Yeah, and for people joining the show, I'm just going through on how I make these things. These aren't necessarily meant as tutorials. You can just see how I do stuff and how I code through it. I'm doing it as curiosity how easy I can do it and what's missing there. You can use them as tutorials if you want. The code I will upload later, but don't expect me to be doing this flawless the first time. This is all sort of experimental on the go. So I have a page control here, and these pages will show nothing. And this is quite what you might expect because there's nothing on these pages. Rather than showing this, what I'm going to do right away is I'm going to convert this into a doc panel. Doc panel. And at the top of this, I'm going to put a page indicator. And the height of this, I just guess, that's fairly small text with padding. Page indicator height equals 30. And page indicators by default are stack panels, and they already have a horizontal layout, so we can do that. But we don't actually want a stack panel in this case. We want a grid layout. Column count equals 3. There's 3 columns here. And then for each item in the page, the reason I'm doing page indicators is I don't want to type the titles again, and I want to be able to connect these items together without worrying too much about it. So how do I do this again? So I do just say text UX template equals dot. This creates what dot we're using. You can use text for a dot as well. And the value equals the page title. And that should be enough to create our layout. And until I get errors. And then we need the navigation, of course. So this is equals time nav. Navigation equals time nav. Okay. And so you see the days, weeks, and month there. And you might think it's all shifted to the left, and that's because it's not the cells, it's because the text itself by default goes off to the left. So if we say text alignment equals center, we should get that back in the right place. And that gives us the days, weeks, and months. And we have these are all uppercase, so I believe we have the transformation that can do that. So I think we have a to upper. There we go. So we have a to upper there. If you note, I put this little squiggly bracket in front of the to upper, and that's because a text value by default is a string, and by default for a string it's just going to concatenate the strings. So if you actually want to do an expression, you have to escape into expression mode. To show you what would happen if I took that out, you would literally just get to upper with the string in it, because that's doing the typical string concatenation. Okay, and that gives us the days, weeks, and months. That gives us a very basic overview. And where is this now? I don't have a screen space. I'd like to keep them both on screen at the same time. I don't know if I can easily do that. And let's keep this one down here and hope I don't need it. Okay. So we have this basic one. We might want to put the lines for the indicators. And right now I'm not going to worry about animation. We'll see. We'll just stick a line in here. And so the page indicator, I'm actually going to convert this into a panel now, because I want to add decoration. And so while it's active, I'm going to put a line at the bottom of it. Height equals 2, color equals 18F. Oops, what did I do wrong? Invalid UX attribute UX template should be spelled correctly. Okay. And so now you have the highlighted page. And there's no way to switch between them yet. But you notice a fine detail in the actual sign is that the line goes right to the edge. Now ours doesn't go to the edge because I put a padding on this dock panel. And that padding actually sort of makes sense because we want the content inside to be padded, but for the top thing we need it to the edge, and the only way we can do that is we take away the padding. And we'll put the padding in wherever we're going to need it later, and so now it sticks it in there. Of course, the page indicator things don't line up right, and we can just add the padding back into these items. You don't need left and right, but it has a heavy top padding. And the bottom padding, when working with text, you always have to realize the bottom, there's always padding on text regardless of what you do. Okay, and well, I don't know why I didn't put that up there. That's a bit weird. Okay, so this should have gone in the bottom. This is a bit weird. Okay, no, I know what is screwing up here. It's because of the height 30. It's fixed into that height. So you have to make sure you adjust the height is there as well. Tweak this as much as I want, and the font size and the text is a bit smaller. Oh, smaller I said. I don't actually know what the default is, and you may not want to play with the font size too much. Obviously you'd want to change the font too. If this was really important to you to have the exact recreation, you would have the same font as well to get the kerning. But don't fret over tiny details too much. Choose the right font, but don't attempt to spend days on getting the exact spacing and everything, because the moment you put this on different devices, it's going to slightly change all of that anyways. So make sure it can actually work with various spacings, not that you have to have the perfect kerning and stuff like that, because the mobile devices don't necessarily have the same font renderers. But now we're going to need some data for the bottom one. We don't really want to hard code the Friday, Thursday, Wednesday and stuff like this, because you notice it's in a different order each time. So we're going to create sort of a table, and I'm guessing the way this app starts up is that there's probably a whole bunch of things you do in the day, and it's taking the top 4 categories and presenting them here. So we're going to do the exact same thing. We're going to take the top 4 categories and let them present it here, and I guess this is some sort of ratio as a top category. Now, there are ways to do this in the charting API. This is part of the premium libs, but this is not presented as a typical chart. So we don't really need the charting API, and I'm not sure how much it would actually help you. It helps you normalize data, but since each one of these is its own chart, it may not help you that much because you only have 4 items. So now I'm going to have to jump back to the JavaScript and actually make some data for this. So let's go over to the JavaScript and let's create some data. This is in the page overview, so the page has this data. And for now, I'm just going to stick it in the page, and I'm going to make a function that creates the page data. And so we're going to say this is just days. And we're going to create a list of data. Let's do create day, and we'll just copy what's on the screen. So we say create day Friday. And I'll have to make that function, and let's just create a couple days, Friday, Thursday, Wednesday. He's got a spelling mistake on his display over here. Thursday. We won't recreate the spelling mistake. I am create all my own spelling mistakes. I'm sure we'll notice them. Wednesday. And, okay, so this is going backwards, reverse chronological order. So showing you like your week in review. So we're going to throw a Monday in here as well. Oops, wrong side. And actually, I'm going to throw the whole weekend, just in case we have to use scrolling. Then we can add the scrolling as well. Sunday, Saturday. So now we're going to create a simple create day function, and it's going to take the day name. And I'm trying to think of how we do this. We can do... I'm not going to worry about the values too much. Let's just do this. Return name is day name. And the values are going to be... And I'm going to pre-normalize these at this point. Okay? This makes the simplest way we can get it. Your data, you're going to need to normalize it somehow, and math.random happens to produce a normalized range of values. And so we're going to pre-normalize this, and this makes it a lot easier when we're doing initial setup. And this should give us a whole bunch of days, and this will give us the dates. And the pages here, this model is actually part of this page model. So when you do in the main view, I end up calling it main state instead of main view, that was silly me. When you bind to pages this way, the page model for these things becomes that data in it. So in main.js, we said the value is new page overview. So this object actually becomes the model for that next page overview, which makes us be able to use this data. So if we go to the page overview, now we can use each on the days one. Each items equals days. And we have to have a layout here. So this is probably a grid. And the columns are going to be, now this is a little bit tricky. What columns are this? There are 5 columns. And we're just going to sort of eyeball this and say this first one's about, now you don't want fixed sizes here, so you want to weight. The first one's 1 star and the second one's 2 stars. So the second one's about 2 times the size of the first one. And we can adjust this. It actually looks more like a third. This is a 3:3 ratio, but we'll see that. And for each day, we're going to have the items. Okay, and so the first thing we have is text value equals name, I think is what I called it. Name. And then we have another each. Oops, I forgot to put that in. Items equals values. And let's just write out the value first of all. Text value equals. And, oh, data. I don't think I have this one yet. This data is going to replace what I do now. I'm going to type this. This binds to the data. In the future versions, it'll be data for clarity. That takes the item from the each. And let's see what that gives us. Probably gives us a compilation error of some kind, because I typed quite a bit there. The grid is missing the end grid. That makes sense. It's not an each, it's a grid. Create day is not defined. So it has to be this dot create day. Getting my JavaScript. Uh-oh, what did I do? What is it doing this? This is weird. I don't know why it's inserting into the middle of the line when I press insert. Not create data, let's create day. Let's see what happens there. There we go. Now we've screwed something up here because we don't have enough columns. And that's quite right. We have the data there. And that's because I was thinking when I said this grid columns is 1 star and 2 star, I was thinking in the total that the whole right side is balanced with the left side. But we're actually going to split that off, and I believe you can just put this one. So we'll just take 0.5 star. You could instead do 2, 1, 1, 1, 1, which would make sense. And there you have all the values. And let's do a 2, 1, 1, 1 instead, so we don't have fractions to deal with there. Okay, and that'll be exactly the same because it takes the weighting of those columns. And now we have that. And the text value of this one, the font size, is pretty much as smaller, is even smaller than the top one. This is getting really small though. I don't recommend this too much in the mobile device. And it's really hard to tell from these screenshots though, because this text is really small, but this iPhone 10 is a lot bigger than what you see here, so maybe the text is a bit bigger. Well, I'll make it a little bit bigger in both situations to try and accommodate that. You won't really know until you try it on the device for sure and see how it feels on different devices and see how easy it is to read. Just make sure there's a high contrast on it so you can read it. Now we have these text values. These aren't so good. We want to have some sort of relative thing. We want to have a circle here. And let's just make a black circle for all of them first. Circle color equals, or just dark color. So what size should this item be now? How big should the circle be? We can say, well, width equals, now we have a value, and you can say times 100%. Because it's a normalized value, this is going to make it exactly relative to that item. And we'll align it to the center. Alignment equals center. And so now you have all these circles all over. The effect is probably far more exaggerated than we want. And we have to align the text as well because the text isn't lined up very well. So let's do, the text alignment is going to be, it looks like left, center to left. And that aligns that a bit. It probably has a margin. The whole thing, the whole grid has padding on it, looks like. Padding equals, and just left and right we need to worry about. The top and bottom already has its own padding. And if we want to nullify this effect a little bit, but you don't want to have quite the same range, you can divide it by 2 plus a half. And that'll fix, well, I have to do it for both of them. Okay, and that actually makes it all bigger because I didn't want to do half. I wanted to make it all based on 25% and take up the left. So that makes it a little bit more reasonable in size. His are a bit smaller down here, and that so you can reduce this even more. If you really want, you can divide it by 3 and add it to 15. And this is to be a visual thing. And this looks like a reasonable visual thing. We don't have the colors on it though. So we have the basic dots. And at least we have the basic relative dots. And because this is such a rough visualization, I don't think you have to worry about it to exactly where it is. You may not want to have the base 15%. Maybe these go to 0. I don't know what the intent is here, but this is really easy to play with here if you want. And we'll just take this sizing for now. But these things have colors. So we want to know what color it is. Color may not be the right way to go about it, but maybe it is. And they may have items instead. So what I mean is that, let's do a color first, and then we might come later and say, well, what is this really? These items are, so this create day, we're going to have, yeah, just let me think about a second here. How do I want to do it? Well, what does he have in the second screenshot? Each item has a sketch, a learning, and chat. Okay, let's do this right away. Let's create an actual item type. Time item. And time item, we don't know what's in it yet. Let's just say it has a name, a color, and a value. We'll do this for now. A name, a color, and a value. And so down here, instead of these values, we're going to do new time item. So this is creating the data, name, and the first day. And we'll check what he has in there. Spent your time on Sketch. I assume that's the tool he's using. And the color is whatever that greeny color is. Those are actual little gradients, but let's just deal with the colors for now. So AFE maybe. And the value was math.random. And we'll create one for each of them. And this creates a data structure. And we spend time on Dribbble as well. Dribbble with 3 L's, I think. Yeah. 3 B's. I don't know why I put 3 B's. I always spelled this wrong. I'm assuming the domain Dribbble wasn't there. 18F. Fine. Okay, but all this, you have to give me all of them now, yeah? So I'm just going to put him here as a placeholder. Well, I think it is 1F. And so yeah, he's inverting colors and random. I'll do the colors last. I really should install a color picker on my Mac. I'm probably like one of those few Macs in existence that doesn't have something like Photoshop on it. It's like, you know, it's probably on my hard drive, no space. It's like space reserved in case I ever want to install Photoshop. Because why would I use a Mac if I didn't have Photoshop or a drawing tool? But I don't, and it's actually really annoying at times. I usually work with a second computer in parallel, but I can't do that when I'm streaming because it would be a different screen. So I don't have anything in it. I should really install something. So now we need colors for this, 8F. So now we've got a purple one. What should purple be? Dribbble was purple. Number F1. You can actually use arrays for this as well in JavaScript. Let me show you that as well, just to make sure. In orange, I'm terrible at guessing what orange looks like, so I'm going to take the yellowy side. This is yellowy red side, and so you can say make relative values instead. So you can say, well, the red side is 1, and the green side is 8, and the blue side is 0.1. This often works a lot better if you're dealing with actual data from a server, because it's not going to come back as colors. You might have relativeness. These strings are just then parsed as colors in the UI, and you have the option here which way you want to do it. And the chat is definitely a bright cyan, so this looks like the initial color, #18F or something. Now we have to use these colors, but you notice these are creating objects now. And so these objects are part of our data model, and we can use these in the UX directly. And the state system will take care of the translating of state if you actually get one. If you modify something, it will update the state. So where do we have that? We have items, and the items have a name, color, and value. In the overview, we don't need the name, but they have a value. So now instead of this, we're going to say value, and we can link to the color instead. And then watch whatever errors I get. Okay. Unexpected token. Okay, so I have something wrong in the JS file. That's to be expected. I'm missing an end piece here. That's fine. There we go. Now, even though I don't have the right colors, you're going to very quickly see exactly why in the design there's a gradient here. Because when you have these flat colors, it looks to be a little bit much. It's a little bit excessive. My colors are a little bit too saturated as well, so the colors should be less saturated. And there should be some kind of linear gradient on these. And I'm just trying to think of how I can quickly do the linear gradients. At the high level, we don't really have yet ways to do the fading correctly. Actually, let me test something. I worked on this recently, so I'm not positive. If we force this to a floating point value, not that one, the color, because colors in the end are just floating point values. And we multiply it just say by a value, another float value, another float of, say 0.5. Right. So what I've done basically there is this is float multiplication of the colors. We can fade it between its color and that one, and instead of using a solid color, we can put a linear gradient here as well. And what's interesting in his here is that these all have a different gradient direction, and I'm just going to ignore that for now. It's something you could add into the file as well, but I'm going to ignore the direction, and it looks like the direction is also duplicated on the small items. And we'll do the simple direction of a diagonal one. Gradient stop color equals, and the first one is going to be the color, and the offset equals 0. And the second one's going to be the modification of the color. And we're going to make the whole thing a bit darker as well. So actually, if I'm doing everything times 0.5, including the alpha, I can just do times 0.5, and that'll darken it and make it more transparent. If your expression gets too complex here in the UX, you can always do an expose a field in JavaScript that has the change colors or has the reduce color. There's many ways to do this. You can do calculated fields. You can do mix and match. I try to keep stuff that's for UI in the UX layer, but we don't have a lot of color functions right now. We should really ideally have functions like brighten and darken, and that will make it a lot better. Okay. And I think I got an error. I didn't make an error. And I gotta get rid of this color here, otherwise I won't use the other one. Right. So now we have a bit more of that spherical type shape. These don't look so flat anymore. They're still not the right colors, but okay, we can deal with that. And they're still fairly they're fairly strong. They're fairly oversaturated. So I'm going to do the exact same thing as I did before. I'm just going to make them a little bit different. There we go. So they are a bit saturated. They have the background, and again, obviously if I had a color picker, you'd want this to line up a little bit better. So we have these days, but I think we have the general feeling of this first page. And it's just one page. Now we want to go on, why do I have these data? Why do I have name and stuff? Because I want to be able to click on one of these, I guess. I guess you want to click on one of these, and you'll get to this other page. So let's see how we get to this other page then. When you click on it, so what happens when we click on this thing? Okay, this is going to be clicked on this item here, grid, 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 grid. Each item in the grid. And so now I'm going to stick on this each item. I'm going to wrap it all in a panel because I want one clickable area. Hit test mode equals local bounds. And local bounds just means it doesn't matter where you click, because otherwise only the visible things you can click. So if you clicked on Friday, it would work, but not in the white space. These balls would work, but not in between them. So when I say local bounds in the panel, it really takes this whole row and says this is now clickable. And clicked equals show, I guess this is show item. This might be show days. I don't know. We're going to find out here right away. As we start doing the different bits. Oh, what did I do wrong here? Oh, yeah. Okay. The issue here is that this grid has these columns, but now this whole panel is now clickable, but I've really lost the columns. And since I don't want to make each one clickable, I'm going to put it out. Where do I want to put that? Oops. We're going to give each of the individual items its own grid layout. Just put this inside of a grid. And actually, this is really kind of silly. I can get rid of the hit then, and get rid of the panel, because if we're going to have a grid, we just make the grid itself the selectable item. And so this becomes a grid at the end. And come on, where's my stuff back? Oh, I got an error. Grid. There's no grid here now anymore. We just have an each. And oh, what did I do? Oh, that's right, because the grid was actually doing the vertical layout as well. So yeah, when you make it clickable, I'm just wondering if maybe I shouldn't make a way to make the row clickable in the grid. That would have made this a lot simpler. There is actually a way to do it, but yeah, let's do it that way anyways. What all this is, we're just going to put a scroll view in here. Scroll view with a stacked panel. Again, you could split these all out into their individual files, because this starts getting a little bit much. But as you're developing, it's very common that you'll have a big file at first, then you have to split it off. It's just the nature, this isn't a large file, it's just the nature of structured documents that they go off to the right a lot. But now you notice everything's really small, and that's because it doesn't expand to fill the screen. This makes a lot of sense. Expanding to fill the screen is not generally something you want to do for lists on mobile devices, because you have no idea what size of device they have. They might have a small one, they may have it in landscape mode. So now we just give them each a height. We can give them each a height. Just give it a fixed height, and that's fine. We'll just try to judge it back. 50, I don't know, 100. 100 is too much. So 60. 60 seems okay. And this is the scroll view now, so if we had more data, we can put more data in. And this scroll view should work here now. Now all of these have a little line in between them. And we're going to cleverly assume for simplicity that this designer, in his graphics, he chose to put a line underneath the bottom one as well, so we don't have to worry about turning it on and off on the bottom one. And there is a way to actually do that, but let's just put it here. Just going to put one more rectangle. No, actually the rectangle is in the stack panel. There's a grid, rectangle, height equals 1. And this color is the same as that background in the back, which we said was EAD88. I think it's the same. EAD88. Okay, and it's actually a lot brighter than that, which is really weird because I can't make it much brighter. If I make it any brighter, it's just going to disappear. So, but it's really, really subtle in there. Let's do it this way. Make it even more subtle. A0 subtle. There it is. Super subtle. This is a bit weird. Okay. And that creates the dividing lines. And there's not one on the top, which is, I guess, okay. I'm not going to argue with any of the designs here. This is, you have the dividing line right above it. And this all looks fine. The spacing's not quite the same. The balls are a little bit more centered in the bottom. If you actually wanted to recreate that these balls look like there's a bit more space in the top, they're not forming an actual grid, then you'll have to put on the grid, you can put a little margin on the top. Just put a little bit on the top, then we can recreate his layout a little bit better. And this white space, I'm guessing the point here is it serves to break up the blockiness, because it looks less like a grid and more like little items in a list then, whereas if I had it my way, it looks kind of centered, and the blockiness is something just break up. And so now we have an actual scrolling. You can see it's actually scrollable now. And I used to worry about visual affordances, that would the user know to scroll this, but now it's like second nature on a device, that if a user sees stuff that's clipped off, they're just going to try and scroll it. So much to the point that if there's something clipped off and they can't scroll it, they'll think it's broken. And so we have this, now we have this thing clickable. When we click on it, we're going to get an error, and you'll see it come up saying show items not defined. So let's go and create show item and what it has to do. Let's take a quick drink here first. Show item is going to have to go to another page. Okay, and this is where we don't have that page defined yet. We need a details page, so show details page. Let's create a page. Name UX class equals page details. Page details UX. Okay, and I'm going to stick these all inside the same JavaScript file again so we can quickly reference it, but you could create as many files as you want. And I don't want to do this, but setting this up is a bit more than I wanted to show. Maybe I can go back to it later or after and fix it up. Page, what does it say? Page details. Okay, and so this has a constructor. And what constructor should it's going to have to take the detailed item. So it's going to take a time item. But how does it get the time item? And that's really weird. How does it get there? Now we have a couple things we have to worry about here. There's a couple options here. If we make time item kind of a global type, and we say it's going to something called show item, there's two places we could put show item. We could put it on the page overview, which logically kind of makes sense. You know, the page overview, it's the one showing the item, but it's not the one that knows how to show the item. And so maybe it goes on the main class instead. This is where it gets a little bit weird, that we don't have a best practice for this yet. Until we create more of these things, I'm not going to know where the best place for this is, and it's going to be really per project. I just encourage you to really think about where these things are going. And if you're doing a quick prototype, it's not so relevant, but really think about it when you have this. Don't overload this main state. And our main state show items really makes sense because this is where navigation is, and this is where we want to stick it on the navigation. But show item takes an args, and the item we actually want to show is args.data. This is a standard thing anytime something's clicked. the data refers to, in this case, where's our clicked? Clicked. Where did I even put the click now? And I forgot where I put it. Clicked here on this grid. It's going to refer to the item inside this each. It's the most local, most recent item. And so show item is going to get this day's item. And we have that in the state. That it goes, so we have this item. And so now we can do this .pages.push, and we're going to put in new. Oh, you're not too late, Iron Codes. Keep watching. You might have missed a little bit of it, but we're going to push in new page details with this item. So that page details has a reference to the item and it's linked together. And so that should push it there. And so we have to do something on that page details to see that we have that item. And so let's just quickly put something on that page that says, I'm just going to throw a stack panel here quickly. Height equals 20, color equals. We should be on this item. And text value equals name. Well, let's see if this worked. Okay, so we have this view, and we want to click on, say, Thursday. And if we click on it, we get an error because I typed something wrong. Page details not found. Oh yeah. What I missed is I have to actually connect it here. I didn't actually say that as part of the template system. Okay, ignore that. What do you get mad at now? It's a bit weird. I'm just going to restart that one. I don't know what happened. This Fuse.js stuff, the stuff I'm doing, we still have a few issues with the state management when you refresh things, but it should have worked. Okay, now we have, okay, it was, that's exactly it, not found in context. So, here's another good lesson too. When programming pages, perhaps one of the first things you should put is some sort of back button so you can actually get back. So I'm going to strictly click a button right at the top, button text equals back. And clicked, I'm just going to make a function say go back. And again, we can make this in our global state. We need a function down here that says go back. And I'm just going to assume that the page has done the right thing right now and say this dot pages dot. Oh man, I'm going to look at my cheat sheet. I forget how to pop stuff off of a back. I have this cheat sheet here. An array. How do I do arrays? Filter arrays. I want to just take the last element off the array. Come on. Filter array, sort array. Okay. Pop. Okay, pop. That makes perfect sense. This book page is not pop. So we go on that. We have the back, and that'll go back to that page at least. If somebody happens to call pop again, it won't work. But now we have to figure out what's actually on that page, because my binding didn't appear to work the way I intended to. So the main state has said this dot pages push new page details item. Ah, yeah, this makes sense. And the item is this dot time item, so it's not stored directly. It's stored as the item. So we might want to say this dot item. And then in page details, it's not color, it's item.color. And this actually makes a lot of sense. I was going to recommend doing this anyways, but I automatically did it because it's hard to do the other way. So you have the details split up. So now when I click on Thursday, I have Thursday, and I'm not sure why I don't have a color. It's a bit weird. Oh, no, that makes perfect sense. The day itself doesn't have a color, the items in it have a color. So let's create those items. Let's do the little bit at the bottom. Think about that first. There's a little each at the bottom here somewhere. Each items equals item.items, I think we called it. So the page time item values. So this is actually not a great data model, because this is not actually a time item. This is more of just some sort of collection. And it's an anonymous object right now. This right down here, I created this as an anonymous object. And let me just iterate over the values first, and then I'll show you how to recreate that so it actually makes more sense. Because that's not really that good, what I did. And so we have item.values. In each of these items, if we look at the little design again, I'm gonna copy the background bit at first. Where did I go? There's a little bit at the bottom here. We're going to have to worry about this time, and I'll show you how to do time normalization in a bit. But we just need some sort of image and a title. And this looks like a dock panel. You may think it looks like a grid, but this, to me, looks more like a dock panel. And dock panels are reduction in sizes. They're like subtractive space. We're going to create a dock panel for each of these. And we're going to dock something at the left. Circle align dock equals left. Width equals 50, height equals 50. And this is going to determine the size of the overall item now. And the color here is now color. Again, we should recreate the linear gradient from the front one. So this is going to be a bit interesting how we do this, because I don't want to duplicate the code too much. And then we also have a dock equals left, and the left one is a time. For now, dock equals right. Value equals, I'm just going to stick the value in here. Okay, I'm just going to do like this. I'm going to say floor value times 100, and we'll just forget about it for now. And then in the middle we have two items. We have the time and another one with text. And it's hard to say how you want to split this up. A dock panel is subtractive spacing. You could either now just space things top and bottom or do another dock. It depends how many items you have here. So I'm going to dock another one to the bottom, or let's dock just dock one to the bottom so I don't have to fill in the top now. Dock equals bottom, and this font size is a little bit bigger, and its value is the name of the item. Okay, and oops, yeah, I made a mistake there. Okay, we have to do that. So the floor of the item, probably not enough space in the bottom there. This is the same mistake I made before. You have to escape that. So we have sketch and Dribbble and learning, and I don't know what happened to our other item value here. Where'd it go? Hello. That's a bit weird. What if I stick another number in first of all, just to test it? Well, it's there. So, oh, it has a value. It's not the item itself. And so we have that value. It's really crude right now. Like, this is a really crude, basic formula for it. But at least it shows that we have the page here. So if you actually went back, you could choose a different day, and you'd have the relative values over here. And you have these icons here, always a fixed size. But these are actually smaller size. And so what we could actually have instead is, it's hard to say what we want for this thing. That changes the overall size, which is really small. So many ways to do these things. We could put a margin on it instead. My tabbing's not working. There's quite a bit of margin on it. That looks more reasonable. It's still quite small, and this, it's bottom aligned though. Interesting. So it's bottom aligned, which means we can't have any vertical tabbing spacing on it. We just need more space, and each items, the dock panel items themselves can have a margin. They don't need a left and right, but they need a top bottom. That'll space them out. The bottom one will make it a bit smaller, and we're just going to use the generic font bold as well, because it's definitely bold. It's small but bold, and a bit larger than that. And as I said before, these fonts are for a bit too small for the screens you'll see in that, because this is like an iPhone 10, which is a bit larger screen than what you have here, I think. It might not be too much bigger though. And then you have the time off to the other side, and I'm just going to ignore the formatting of the time right now. That maybe this dock panel does have a left-right margin because of the fact it's on the bottom. We'll see about that. But we have, I'm more worried about this pilot in the middle right now. I want to do these big circles. And how these big circles work, this looks nice here. They're like, the sides are center aligned, and they're just stuck on two sides of it. I don't know how dynamic this display really is. That is, I don't know how important it is that we have a really dynamic layout here, or is it just going from big, small, little, bigger, that we actually just have a two-column display. This is not a grid though, because you see it's not a grid, there's a line, does not do the grid spacing here. Since we only have two items, we can just do the display of this if we want directly, and otherwise you could use something like a wrap panel. A wrap panel will be really good here actually, except the problem with the wrap panel is that, or a column layout panel, is that it's going to have this big one and this small one here, but the design shows the second big one down here. I'm trying to think if there's a way we could actually do that using an each. I'm guessing not. It's going to be hard. We'd have to refilter the data, so let's just actually manually do the four layout. Because we can show another concept with this. We're going to make a class for each of these ones. And you just call it a big dot. And now I'm going to call it something called page details big dot. Or actually PD big dot. Just for now, so it has the name prefix. And so somewhere in here in the stack panel, I have now a big panel. And this panel is actually a grid, and it has a column count of 2. But it only has 2 columns, and we're going to just let it expand to its own size. Since the one side we have a panel, on the other side we have a panel as well. Actually, these are stack panels. So again, so some of these things can be really tricky to recreate because they have a very particular layout. Okay, all this is suggesting a circular layout, and I actually thought of this when I looked at it before the show, but these are not aligned like in a circle. These are definitely not a circle, and so I'm just going to focus with the 4 here. And what I think this app is actually doing is it's really just showing in these big things, and it makes a lot of sense. If you were doing a time tracking app, you wouldn't show like all of the user categories. You'd only show the big ones, maybe a small one at the end, because this main display over here, if you just kept adding more, it'd look like crap really fast. And this one here, you're just showing that here, this is where you spent your big times, right? And at the list in the bottom, you're going to say, look, you spent other times here, but the list in the bottom you did here. And I'm wondering if this is actually going to work when I'm going to try, though, this fixed amount, or we have to use iteration, because I don't know if we can actually get individual list items. So now we're going to do an instance. I'm going to take the item to be item.value 0 for this one. Now let's test 1. So it's saying this is an instance where we bind it to the first one, and we're going to create a PD big dot with it. The purpose of the instance here is that we bind it to the values, so if we don't have an each, we can still bind the data here. And where do we do this? And so this panel up here, these PD big dots are also stacked panels, because the first thing they have a value, text value equals name. And then they have a circle, and I'm just going to make it really big for now. Width equals, or we can do this size right away. I don't know how big these should be. Let's just say width 200 times value, and height equals 200 times value. Color equals color. Let's hope something works. So we get 1 circle. That's a good sign. We get another circle. Really, really large circle. 2 more. So, like I say, this isn't ideal that we have this fixed layout, but sometimes the design just wants that, right? We have 4 items. We don't have a control where we can simply align them this way specifically, but this code isn't so bad. Use the instancing because we have the stack panels in between. I say, if the layout was different, if it went from like big, smaller, 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 then you could use a column layout and it would handle it perfectly. But since it actually doesn't do that, since it goes down this way, then this way, it does. And because these don't line up, I don't have any standard layout that can do this. So in some cases, you're going to have to resort to something different. And so these instances, these dots on this one, because they also have an alignment equals right. These ones are aligned to the right, and the other ones are going to be aligned to the left. And they're kind of too big, but again, we're going to have a range issue. We don't know how big these should actually be, and the range is probably subdued. No, I made a mistake. Okay. So they're kind of packed together, and this is because this column here, these columns here. The easiest way to get an extra space in the middle of a grid is just give it 3 columns, and then stick a spacer in the middle. Width equals 20, and you can get random space in there. And alright, and this grid, should this fill the whole size or not? No. It's not adaptive, and that's kind of an issue. It's not adaptive, and should it be adaptive? Maybe it should be adaptive. So the columns are going to be 1 star, 20, and 1 star. So the middle one doesn't need a width. And that'll make them, these are still adaptive, so if we actually change the size, yeah, that's correct. You said to make them all the same size. Now our actual grid there isn't really adaptive. It fits in the middle, but if we had a really small one, the width circles would be too big, too small. And I have this, it's just basically sketched out now. We're going to have to slowly put in the details. It's this gradient thing. This gradient thing is going to kill me again and again, that every single one of these needs a gradient. The text has to be centered as well. Alignment equals center. And the text actually has the color of those things again. The text actually has a gradient color. And I will apologize, there's no way to do gradient colors right now on text. No, yeah, there's just no way to do it right now. So we're going to have that fixed color on the text. The circles will be able to do a gradient. The text colors, maybe not. And I don't know where that first column comes from, so we're just going to say 2 hours productive more than Monday. This is also a stack panel. And it has a big text. This is a title times split. Font size equals 28. Looks like a bold font as well. Or maybe it's a medium font. Looks more like medium and it doesn't look that big. There's no padding on the space. The space has no background or anything, but the whole page itself should still probably have some padding on it. Because you don't want to have everything packed up against the edge. And it's missing some sort of back indicator. We can add that somewhere else. Although sometimes you can rely on the user swiping, you don't necessarily want to rely on that, and especially if you're going to be like iPhone and iPhone 10 friendly, where they don't have hardware back buttons. You really should have a back button somewhere here. So let's take this back button here, and instead of putting it on the stack panel, we're going to put it up in the top right corner. Where did I stick it? I stuck it over here. And you probably want to give that an icon as well. So when you click it, it goes back. Use an icon. And we go to Tuesday now. And now we have it different sizes. And getting the exact sizes of things, this would be a real pain. Okay. So what I want you to know is that we have this gradient, this repeating gradient, this gradient, and we want this gradient pretty much everywhere, and we want it to have the same definition. What you can't really do in Fuse yet is you can't create a common function on these gradients, so we're actually going to put this into JavaScript. These are view states anyway, so it's not like this is horribly wrong to do it. It's totally fine to do this. It's just I wish there was a way to create these at the high level. We're still going to have to kind of create it that way. So we have times this and times that. The one issue with putting them on the JavaScript level is that this time item, we need to create two functions, and these are going to be getters. Color start and get color end. Press the wrong key. In order to do this though in JavaScript, these are not, the color calculation in JavaScript, I think there are libraries for it, but this becomes a little less nice. And how can this be done then? How can this be simply done? I was really trying to think, there must be a way I can do this easier. And because I don't want to do it in JavaScript either. Let's look at this page. Let's see if there's something I can do. We can create classes of many, many things. So let's just create a linear gradient UX class equals circle gradient. Start point equals 0, 0, end point equals 1, 1. Or is this more of an item gradient? Let's say this is an item gradient or a value gradient, item gradient. Assuming this is in the context of an item, we can make this work. So it has a color, that's actually fine. Now this is in the context of an item, so this should work item gradient. Now this is going to change absolutely nothing at the start, I'm hoping. And, well, other than creating an error. What did I do wrong? What's it whining about now? Name cannot begin with a comma character. Oh, right there. There it is. So the problem is right there. We can't create a binding. Because there's no nodes, because linear gradient is not a node. That was what I thought would happen. But instance is a node. And this is where I think we can get creative here. Instance is a node, so it should be able to do bindings. Now I think this is actually just wrong now. Why is it looking for a binding there? This should have actually been fine. I don't know why it's failing now. I'm going to rebuild it in case there's something wrong with the preview's understanding of it when I changed it. There are no suitable parent nodes in this scope. That was unintended, so let's do... no, I think no group. I don't use these that often because I don't... These are very specialty cases when you're trying to abstract certain things. Okay. Trying to see what it says here. It's really small. Item gradient does not have any content. Yeah, okay. That's the problem here. Okay. Yeah. This is unfortunate. It's something I'm going to have to look at. There appears to be no way to actually do this. we can't create this class. But let's go back to here. We have a fallback. It's one that we don't publish very much. If this is literally the same in all the situations, we don't have to worry about making it an actual class. We could make this an include file instead, and this should work. A lot of hopeful things. Like I say, I try some things. So includes, we're going to say item gradient. And I'm just going to call it XML, so it's not included. So it's not included in my files, because otherwise it'd be compiled as a file. And in our main page overview, maybe it should be called UX, I don't know. It's completed. Okay, it worked. Alright, that worked. That's exactly what I wanted. So, I'm going to look into why I couldn't do those bindings, but this is an alternative. And I highly recommend, even though include is kind of like, you know, the poor man's version of a class, if we can't do it another way, I don't see a problem with it. And so we do the item gradient. Now we have this item gradient file, because now we can go over to the page details, which has the same definition. We have this circle over here on the page details, on these big dots. And we're in an item as well, so we should be able to include the linear gradient here as well. And down on these things, down in the circle down here also. Though you might want to argue that maybe the whole circle should be the the class. If you wanted the whole circle, you could actually make the circle a class, but I just want the linear gradient in this case. It at least shows something else. So I click on it. Come on, I click on it. Okay, I've broken something now, though. What did I break now? Let's see what happened. I don't know what. So now they all have the linear gradient. We still don't quite have the layout we want, but at least they have some more reasonable colors there. And I notice it actually doesn't fade to black. Some fade to black. Some you're gonna take a lot of tweaking. I'm just gonna stick with these gradients for now, but that's gonna take a lot of tweaking to get all of that correct. And let's go to the page over details again. We have the text issue here. I'm gonna just move this over a little bit so I can see it. These items, this text size is really small. Font size equals 14, and it's a light font. If we have those, if there's default one, there's a lot of margin on the top. Margin equals 0,20,0,0. And, or more like there's more margin on the bottom, or both. Now it's really hard when you have all these circles, and it has a time in the middle, and that's why we have to stick some time in the middle of the circle as well. Text value equals, and we know it has a value here again. Alignment equals center. And I'm just going to floor it again first of all. Just going to floor this value times 100, just so we have some something to show in there right now. And 79, and so this isn't a time thing. And this is getting pretty tiny down here. So maybe these things do have a kind of minimum size to them where they shouldn't even be displayed. And he's using white here. If our colors don't line up, white won't look so good. But it works well enough, light. There is also an hours written here, hours and minutes. And that might start not being able to fit in ours. So these are all much closer to the same size. And I'm taking, so this is 5 hours and this is 35 minutes. Which means the range of size here is extremely limited. This is not 5 times as big as this one, and this 35 is almost the smallest time thing, so these values here are not quite as large as they should be. So let's reduce the size here as well to be something more reasonable. Not 100 times the value, but instead we're going to say maybe 100 times the value is okay, but then it has a basic size of at least 50. And that's starting to get too big, so maybe this is only a range of 50, so it only makes a difference of 50 in size. And this is starting to look more like the ranges he has and looks more reasonable. And this will produce a range of nowhere between 50 and 100 in size. If that's what we want, we're not sure, it's okay. Now the text, because I'm using the color, that's a fairly rough color. We did the multiplication as well, and I think we can do it again here. Do a force of float, and times it by a float, times it by the values. How do I want to do this? 0.5, 0.5, 0.5, 1. That should make it darker. That's a poor man's way of making some darker. As I said, we should have darken functions, which we don't have yet. That makes it a little bit darker. Here's our bit lighter, so we could adjust this a bit. And this maintains the colors roughly. Impurities, so let's just do it a little bit more. 7, 7, 7. Okay. And I'm going to go file the request to actually have color working functions here. There's a bit more in there. We have to have this time still. Without this time, there's not a lot we can actually do. We have to have this time range, and there's a little bit down there, but we have the basics this Friday. I'm going to cheat on the layout here. When we have the text at the top here, we don't have the text item name. We're going to have something like, we have hours here, so we're going to say how many hours. I'm not even sure how to get this out. Item.productivity hours more productive than. I'll just use item name, but it's the wrong one, and so item productivity. Now you notice it completely disappears because we haven't defined productivity yet. And because this is actually a page property, I'm not going to put it on the item. We'll just put it up here, this.productivity. And I'm just going to do math.random, and I'll just say this is in hours times 5 hours. Well, say it's in minutes. Then I say 500 minutes. 500 minutes. And this is in minutes, productivity minutes. And since I recompiled the JavaScript, it's going to make me do this again. And productivity, and where is it now? Productivity hours more than. I don't know where that went to. It should have shown up now. We have a productivity. I think I spelled it exactly the same. Or actually, look at my problems first. It's often a good one. Productivity not found in the data. Why not? Productivity. Did I spell it wrong? No, I didn't spell it wrong. I put it in the wrong object. It's a page details object. So, okay, we wrote hours. So we have 367 hours more productive than Thursday. Which is obviously not so helpful. We want to convert that to hours somehow, or hours and minutes. We don't have formatters yet at the UX level, which is kind of annoying. So the best you could kind of do right now is you could say, I'm going to make an expression, productivity divided by 60 hours, and that would give you 6.16, which kind of sucks because that's we don't have formatters. Lacking formatters is really kind of an issue, and we've been meaning to work on this for a while. You can always fall back to doing it in JavaScript then. So you can do prod hours or something, get product hours string or something. Then we can do this in JavaScript. And I don't actually know how to format in JavaScript either, but I know I can do the formula a little bit quicker. So you can say return plus math.floor this.productivity. And we'll actually say this is in hours again, so product string. We'll put this back in hours. Divided by 60, so this is in hours. So we can just floor this, and then we can do plus math dot. Actually, this won't work because I won't get the timing right. Yeah, no, I don't know how to form a string in JavaScript either. That's kind of an issue. Does anybody know how to format JavaScript strings? No. Format number in JavaScript. I don't know how to do that. Two fixed. Two fixed looks delightful, but is that actually JavaScript? It is. Date 2. It's not a date though. Yeah. But all this, you're absolutely correct. Everything else you see on that design is going to be date, and I'm not actually looking forward to that. I should have thought that before. To fix 2. So these are hours. So we have this prodster thing now, and then instead of doing this, you can do prodster. And these functions bind, like these getters bind just the same way as actual values. So 2.70 more hours. Ideally, you'd want to use the colon formatting instead. All right, I'm just going to leave it at that, 2.7 more hours, more productive than Thursday. This is the wrong date, because I'm really focusing on the design here. I don't want to go through building the whole data model, because you'll have to worry on that on your own. But the design here, and I'm going to replace that back with an arrow of some kind. Just grab one from Unicode for now. Or, actually I have arrows in my graphics folders. I have wherever I am. Map doesn't make it nice to go to a particular folder. I'm over where are my folders? Seriously, I don't know why it's laid out like this. Can you lay out properly? Assets. We have an arrow left. You can't see it, but if I open it up in a preview, you can see it. And let's use that one there. So I'm going to copy this. Can I hit copy? And I will throw it over in the folder we're actually in right now, which is in... I don't know where I'm in. I'm in a Fuse. I really don't like their tools for doing this. Notice, I'm just going to do it in the command line, okay? Assets, icons, 64 / arrow left to assets. Sometimes the command line is just a little bit easier than trying to figure out whatever weird things they have. Image, clicked equals go back, alignment top right, file equals assets / arrow left.png. So we can give it an arrow as well. And let's let it have its natural size. And you notice it's white because it's actually white. And all of my icons I pre-prepared are always white so that you can actually color them here. And it's really big, so we're going to give it a size. We'll just give it a height. I don't know what the height is. The height should probably be the same as that time split text, so it seems to line up. And so it looks like it actually belongs on the page. And maybe it should go on the other side. I'm actually not clear where it should go on which side. But that looks fine there for now. Through Studio. But all this, those graphics weren't in my folder. That was kind of the issue, right? My graphics were somewhere entirely different. I have open project, where's project, open project folder, yeah. I just don't have those there, but I guess, yeah, if I would have opened it and copied it. Okay, I understand, yeah, I could drag and drop. I'm just faster than Command. I know where these files are, I know. Okay, so let's do something on the bottom here first. To get something more on the design. What else do we have the design? We had the rest of the design right here. The rest of the visual design. And we're getting close to this. We have details, of course, we had to fix. This column in the middle, it's a little bit unfortunate, and this is often the issue. When you're doing graphics design for dynamic data, make sure you try these layouts with different items, because this looks like a nice layout, but it looks like it's basically just because the values lined up. I just have different sizes here, and it doesn't line up, but we should also sort these, I guess, and these aren't sorted right now. Well, that's probably the mistake there. We're going to have to actually sort this data. So let's sort that data first of all. That might help a little bit. So how do we sort data? We have page details, and this is an item. We want sorted values, so we're going to get sorted values. And right now, if we just return item.values to get it working, the page details where we iterated over the values, we're going to say sorted values now. Sorted values instead. And down here we'll have sorted values as well. And hopefully it looks exactly the same right now, because I haven't actually... uh-oh. That's not good. It looks like I'm going to have to talking a bit to Sebastian that we broke something. That was not supposed to happen. Okay. I can do this a different way. To work around this error, I'm just going to do it this way and we'll sort it there. This is supposed to work. And I'm going to put a big to-do crashed. And I'll get rid of it. Oh, you might be absolutely correct. All this is probably correct. Let's see if it actually fixes it. I'll get rid of that up there. What's it doing? Let's just restart the viewport. After this crash, I might want to do that. Sometimes weird things happen. I'm still, even if this does work, I still don't like that we get to the crash screen. It should just give us a friendly error screen like it would in a normal case. Okay. And this item is undefined. It still doesn't like this. It's something, it doesn't like something at all. Does not contain properties sorted values. Am I binding to the wrong thing? It should just be sorted values. Because we're not going into the items, so let's get that correct as well. But I say at least this one's a friendly error. The other one was a JavaScript error, and that sometimes they're not caught in the best way. Alright, so that works. So now all we have to do is actually sort them. And for that, I'm going to actually refer to my cheat sheet. Because I always forget sorting. Sort array, items sort, that looks wonderful. This.items.sort. A comma B goes to, and these are items, so now we have a value. We want the highest one first, so A dot value is greater than. Alright, so this is doing the subtraction thing, and we actually want B dot value to the reverse order. You just have to use the JavaScript way of sorting things, and then we'll see if this actually works. Alright. No, that's not what it's doing. What? This one has a lot of small ones. Well, that one was sorted. That one's not sorted. Why is it not sorting them? Come on, JavaScript, why have you not sorted these? What have we done wrong? Sorted values. Sort. Sort. Return this dot items that values. Dot sort. Let's crash about this. I'm trying to think of why it's not actually sorting. Did we just get lucky on that one? Yeah. Let's put this in a temporary first. Var equals return Q. Console.dir Q. Let's see what happens here. Object. Oh, of course it's an object. Let's just do log value Q0.value. I'll just do the quick way. I know there's a quicker way to do this, to do a whole bunch of them, but okay, so the sorted values is actually the correct order. That's weird. This should also be a scroll view, just so we know. So sorted values actually looks to be correct, but our display is doing something still wrong. Sorted value 0, sorted value 1, sorted, 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 sorted. I don't know why they're not doing it in the right order. Something really weird. Something really weird. I'm going to keep repeating that. Something really weird. Let's rebuild, and something got cached in the state or something wrong. Because I temporarily had it in the constructor to stick the old items in, that it might be stuck in the state with those old items somehow. Good, it's just loading. No. This is weird. It's sorted, but it's not bounding to the sort list. That's a really interesting question. Why is it not binding to the sorted list? Sorted value 0. What if I do it here? This dot sorted values. You shouldn't have to do it here, but either I'm not seeing something or we hit some kind of weird defect. All right, I'm not seeing something. We're breaking. Something's going wrong here. What am I doing wrong? Kind of annoying. Those just happen to be in the right order, or the opposite order. Why on earth is it doing this? Is this actually values? Those are the items, and the time item is value. I just don't know why it's not doing this. I'm really confused right now. I don't know why it's not showing the sorted values. We have it linked correctly, and since I can't think of anything offhand, I'm just going to leave this one and move on because I don't know. I'm going to debug it afterwards. This is really weird. I don't know why it's just binding to the wrong values. Just makes no sense whatsoever. Okay, so I'll figure that one out offline and just assume that they're organized there. And what we're still missing is a little bit of text down here. But this is all formatting and stuff, so I think I'm going to leave that off for right now. And let's look at what we have. So this page is rather basic, but the page here is also rather basic, and it's all to do with this time format. We're missing the time formatting for now. And I might add that in. You might want to actually use a library like Momentum to do all the time formatting. It's not so exciting to watch live, but I can add this afterwards maybe, and I'll commit this version, and then when I add the time, I'll commit the version. I've gone a little bit longer than I wanted to, but we have the basic thing. The front page looks pretty much like the way we want. What we didn't do are the actual weeks and months yet, right? If you go to them, you don't get anything. But you're going to see it's going to be the exact same setup that when you go in the weeks and days. So this is actually a page control here. If you go to the weeks and days, you're going to have the exact same list of items, and so the data structure is going to repeat itself a lot. And maybe I can finish this up offline, and I'll finish this example, then maybe I can get the graphic on top, and I'll fix all the errors, and we can actually finish this up as an example, and I'll publish it. But hopefully this has been helpful as it is to show how to do these basic layouts, how to do the data model passing around. I'll publish it this way. And thanks a lot to the graphic designer who came up with this one. I think we're going to see him a lot. That's Johnny Vino. They have a lot of, or he, or if it's a company or whatever, they have a lot of nice designs in there, and I think I'm going to follow them as a lot of templates because they have a lot of nice things. And this one turns out well. So wrapping up this episode, what I want to do is I'll probably clean up with dates. I'll figure out a few errors. I'll think about maybe adding some color functions into the fuse. I have a few other things I have to do first, which are pressing, but we'll get there. And I hope you enjoy the show, and I hope it's been productive for you. And if you have questions, again, just come over to the Slack channel and ask, or in the forums, post the code. And be sure to follow me on Twitter and Twitch to catch the shows. And I thank you very much for watching, and I'll finish this up and upload it. Thank you very much.